Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSPmagazine. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Marco.
Sean, we're back together.
We are back together. We are on the road virtually to Toronto.
I wish. I've never been there.
I have been. It's beautiful. It's really fun. Really fun. And we are, this is the Chats on the Road. We're virtually on our way to Sector, Canada, which is part of the Black Hat Events family. And so I'm wearing my Black Hat shirt here just to help promote, just because I love what they do. And as you know, Marco, the Sector and the Black Hat conferences are all about research and uncovering new things with respect to threats and protections and how we look at cybersecurity from societal to business to individual perspective, that full circle. And this year I picked a few topics that I wanted to dig into. I've recorded one already on enterprise browsing. And today we're talking critical infrastructure, and I'm thrilled to have Marina Krotofil on, who is going to share a bit with us about one of her sessions that she put together. Marina, it's great to have you on.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to meeting the audience and to share what I have to say, because I've been working in this field for almost over the 13 years. I've been witnessing how the threats historically evolved. I was really happy to be part of the analysis of the leaked Vulkan files, so-called, and I'm happy to share what I found and how what we've previously seen, the cyber operations against critical infrastructures, how it basically relates to what we've seen in the files. So I'm looking forward to talk about that on the stage.
Well, I think you have about 20 minutes to tell us about 13 years of research. Can you condensate that in there? Can you squeeze it in?
Yeah, it's sufficiently, it's actually one timeline, because it all started in 2010 when we first uncovered Stuxnet, because Stuxnet as such was not that, I don't want to offend those who developed it, that it was not that sophisticated or worrisome, because at the end it's just a piece of malware, in such as the design. But I think what is more worrisome and what it is unleashed, because after that the Pandora box was open. It's just for in this context, it's Russia who basically discovered that USA and Israel possess such capabilities, and they apply them. And they felt like they need to catch up. And this is why the amount of operations which we've seen from them, and there is multiple advisories, there have been indictments and so on. It's just been mostly because they were so in a hurry to catch up that some of their operations was loud, and maybe I would not want to call them sloppy, but they had mistakes because those were not carefully planned. We had an opportunity to see what they have been doing, and everything, like the Vulkan files again, which I analyzed, they just confirmed that all of the previous operations were leading towards basically having this strategic, tactical, centrally managed cyber operations. But in reality, it's just one timeline from 2010 until today.
And how, for the people that don't follow maybe too much the info security part of this, but they're interested in knowing what's going on, when we talk about cyber warfare and we talk about kinetic, real war, but in my opinion, everything is real anyway, even if it's online, what has been changing for that? So I think the perception is that the cyber warfare, it's a kind of a support to the second role with the kinetic attacks, but I guess that it's not that simple. I guess the things have been changing lately. So what can you say about that?
Yeah, that's a very good question because so Stuxnet was a cyber physical weapon. Yeah, it was a cyber weapon which targeted physical infrastructure, this centrifuging uranium. And throughout these years until the war in Ukraine, it has been a strong belief that cyber weapons can become strategic and tactical weapons, which could like be equal to the kinetic weapons when, for example, destroying critical infrastructures like electricity, water supply, I don't know, manufacturing, production, and so on. And it's been overhyped. And my specialization is exactly cyber physical security. And I spent a lot of years and many talks on the stages telling that, no, it's not that easy. I was just not believed. Nobody believed me because I've tried it. I've developed such exploits. I've designed such attacks on real infrastructures. I've been saying, hey, look, there is so much work in there. There is so many unknown. There is so many edge situations. It's just not reliable enough. And I was just not believed because others just wanted to. I mean, it's human that you want to believe in wonders, like call it like that. Yeah, we all believe that wonder exists. And during the war in Ukraine, before the war in Ukraine, it was expected that cyber will be like, we will see like all the power plants or substations will be taken down by the cyber weapons. It didn't happen. It was kinetic. And the reason for that, I also assisted our Ukrainian government when we analyzed what to expect. And they had a lot of list of concerns whether this attack is possible and this and this and this and this will be all this critical infrastructure taken down by the cyber. And I say, no. Every scenario what they had in mind or were afraid of, we had to cross out because I say, hey, you need also on top of this and this and this. So any like basically very strong and destructive kinetic effect cannot be achieved that easily or at all by cyber. So you need to combine it with physical sabotage. But if you have to combine physical sabotage, you might just use physical sabotage. And that's exactly what has happened. And the same, for example, in reverse, Ukraine, when they were targeting Russian critical infrastructure on the border, those were kamikaze drones, which were carrying explosives. The reason for that is that, like, maybe I will also go back quickly to the Triton attack. So the whole intrusion to reach needed assets, which you need to exploit, the whole intrusion lasted 12 months. And we know that to develop the exploit, which they've been using against the safety PLCs, because the attack was targeting safety PLCs. This is a control system which prevents explosion, toxic releases, and so on. So basically protects humans in the plant. So developing the exploit also lasted more than 12 months. So it's a very, very long operation. It's expensive, it's hard, and it still failed. Why? Because cyber is too unreliable, too many unknowns. We still don't know how to use it tactically. If you take the kinetic weapons, why every country carries out extensive drills and tests when they develop new weapons? Because you need to learn it, how it works. And you need to find the way how to use it reliably. With cyber, we are still not there. So it was a little bit overestimated.
Okay, that's interesting, Sean. You know what it is? It's kind of like magic. They make you look here, and then they do the magic on the other hand, right? And for the people listening, I'm just doing some magic tricks, which I'm not able to. But it's kind of like a decoy in a way, right, Sean?
A bit of deception and distraction, perhaps involved there, yeah. And I'm wondering, so maybe we can get to some of the nuggets in the files. You talked about techniques and tactics and signals of attack and compromise and things like that. But first, I want to kind of stay high level and ask you, are you able to glean kind of the mindset of the bad actor group from what's in these documents? Because kind of to your point, they're doing some analysis of what's our objective. How do we reach that objective? How does cyber play into that? What are the costs and returns on that effort? Can you glean a mindset from this group? Would be interesting.
Yeah, very good question. So I think the most important fact to know about the Vulkan files is that in Russia, cyber operations are now being predominantly moved under the Ministry of Defense. It means it's truly so. Let's think about a definition of warfare. Yeah, the war is intense military conflict. Warfare is a military strategy of hybrid operations. So warfare as such is not necessarily a weapon, it's a strategy, but it is a military strategy of conducting hybrid operations, which involve politics, diplomacy, psychological operation, information warfare, cyber, and everything else. So it means it's just very strategic, tactical thinking instead of basically being a civilian thinking, which is less a little bit strategic. Military is eyes on target, cost is nothing, being effective, like collateral is less important, and so on. So cyber is now being moved officially, what we see from Vulkan files, under the military of command. So it will become very strategic. And this is where cost becoming less and less important. So in Vulkan files, when we look at the graphical user interface, which are used to be like basically software where the commanders are planning the operation and ordering certain operations. There is so-called, they need to account of which resources you need, but it's not about the money. It's just like, I need a submarine, or I need, I don't know, like access to Deutsche Bahn or Deutsche Bank. And I need, like, I don't know, 200 soldiers, like cyber warriors, but it's not about the money. So as soon as we start talking about war and military operations, or basically money is no longer matter. So the only what they will be taken into account is how much time to react they have. And this is why, so Vulkan files is not about, and I now will answer your second question. Vulkan file leak is not about leaked techniques and tactics, because those are changing daily. Like if you want to know about those, you need to speak about national sources around the globe, because they meet them daily. And cyber weapons, tactics, and techniques, they can become obsolete overnight. As soon as they are discovered, they are almost ineffective. So Vulkan files are about creating centralized strategy and software platform to support centralized management of cyber operations. But it's also about long-term preparations to conduct cyber operations when you need them. So that is basically, again, where the hybrid warfare comes into play, because it's long-term military thinking. So they have, for example, this Khan platform is about having strategic permanent access to the organizations of your interest, like critical infrastructure, banks, financial, transport, diplomacy, ministries, and so on. And then you have to have all the necessary information and level of persistent access with necessarily privileges to execute tactical operations whenever needed. If tomorrow the whole strategy, or let's say Russia, let's say, would like to take, I don't know, I'm just taking over on Germany because I'm German citizen, so that's just kind of like, let's assume there is a conflict, and they want to say like, hey, I want to bring the Deutsche Bank down. It means that they want to have a level of access and knowledge about that organization that then within, I don't know, week, they can execute that attack. And it has to be reliable enough, because military thinks about reliability, timeliness. It has to be, puzzles has to fit together. So it means that politically they already maybe will provoke a conflict. The cyber attack will be ready. They maybe will do some diplomacy, maybe some information warfare, some disinformation, and it's all together has to come timely in the same time so that it fits into the operation. That is what the Vulkan file is about.
So this is within MOD now, and I always have this, I'm sure it's a naive view, that a lot of the aggressive cyber stuff is nation state sponsored, but not nation state controlled. This sounds like there's much more internal, well, much more organized than, of course, that has to be. But anyway, there's that whole world that I'm just wondering, is there any glimpse into not just the offense part of this, but the defense? How do they ensure that their operations are resilient? Does it cover any of that stuff?
Yes, there have been some coverage that, so one of the modules which was in those, let's say, platforms, which among those leaked files was about training. And indeed, they were training not only to do offense, but also how to defend own infrastructure. And actually, it's interesting that on one hand, they want to defend own infrastructure. I don't know, I mean, mostly military, because a lot of those operations which are described in the leaked documents are aimed at own nation. So majority of disinformation, control of what information is being fed to the population, it's all written in those documents that this disinformation is created first and foremost for own citizens. So Russia is one of the biggest part of those operations, and probably best described in the documents are information, I mean, not even information warfare, but mostly PsyOps. Because, I mean, at the end, information warfare is PsyOps if it is strategic. So on those territories, on own territories, and those which they conquer or would like to conquer, they would like to completely cut off the internet and basically be in the middle. So if you're sending the request to Google, like, hey, I don't know, war in Israel or war in Ukraine, it will be returning results and articles what Russia want to return. And you basically will be believing in fiction. So that's what they do on the TV at the moment. They also want to do the same on the internet. They're already doing it, actually. In fact, the system is already installed and operational. So this capability is now already being used by their military units.
It inspired me a couple of comments when you went into talking about the use of the media, the propaganda, which again, it's something that has always been part of war, except that maybe during the early war, it was done by dropping little piece of paper from pamphlets from the airplane and try to make people move from one side to another, giving information that they didn't have and moving the needle in one direction or another. And now we have a higher reach with the internet, of course. So my observation is that while it cannot be maybe so effective from a physical perspective, these cyber war are actually much more effective in the propaganda and creating the dialogue that you want, compared with what it used to be. So there is still a big value. That's my point. But it's not that I'm going to push a button and I'm going to stop, I don't know, an energy plant from working.
That's right. And I think, yeah, it's more about, I like really the word which Sean used, like controlling, you know, it's just so that's about controlling the masses. You know, that's the easiest way to control the masses. And that is what is dangerous. You know, like if you controlling the internet and the information which is flowing into the area, that is the most dangerous threat of all for me. Because as long as you believe and have hope, you know, you're alive and you're fighting. As long as it's, so this is what happened also in the Ukrainian territory. The first thing they done, they switched off the local, like basically on the occupied territories, they completely disconnected basically Ukrainian base stations for the cellular internet and via the internet, and they basically provided their own internet. And people stopped having access to the realistic information. And when they were like those villages and towns which were liberated, they're most, let's say, they were very angry that Ukrainian government did not made an effort to provide them with a realistic information, because they found that it was the most difficult to maintain that hope, that because they don't know what's happening with the war, they had no information, and they found that being most difficult. Is it one day I have to wait two? Is it already over? They don't know. So I don't know even how those people survived so long waiting.
It's social engineering. That's what it is.
Yes.
Yeah, it's wild and scary. But this is why we talk about it, so we can understand and hopefully learn and prepare for these things and take a proper stance when necessary.
Exactly, but maybe like what I wanted also to say is that we've been talking. Yeah, I know we've been a little bit on intense topics, and I got a little bit emotional about it because I'm born Ukrainian, so clearly these operations affect me personally, but also like these operations also have relationship not only to war but also to the civilian times, for several reasons. Firstly, preparations for those operations which will be conducted in time of crisis or war are being done during the peace times, because if you need like 12, 18 or 24 months to get access to the organizations of your interest, they are starting in advance in the peacetime, when you are not waiting, like basically you're not expecting them. You're not paying attention, you're a little bit more relaxed. So this is, I think, what has happened is in Israel, why this sudden attack was successful, because they were paying a little bit less attention, because they saw that like everything, at least in the balance, or at least they did not expect this escalation. But also like falsely, or let's say naively, many middle and small size organizations are believing that they are not a target. But the attackers need a lot of infrastructure to conduct their operations. They need proxies, they need assets to conduct denial of service attacks, they need a lot of jumping hosts, they also to run their Tor nodes and whatnot. So they need a lot of infrastructure. So it means a lot of computers will be taken over to be part of that infrastructure. So you are a target, and the small organizations, the last year protected, I'm currently on the audit in the medium-sized financial organizations, and I'm pretty shocked how poorly protected or unprotected infrastructure is. It's just like, just take me, so, and that is why governments also still need to be worried, and why it matters and important, because again, this file just tells us about like many threats are, you need to extrapolate and analyze. They're not directly in the documents, because everybody thinks like, oh, what exploits, what techniques. No, it's not about, because exploit is unimportant. Tomorrow it will be another exploit. That's nothing. You need to see at the strategy and long-term game, and that what was so what Vulkan is telling us, files. And also, I've been watching and let's say following the Russian cyber operations for many, many years, a lot. And I've been seeing them, I understood them, I understand why they were conducted. And it was often that I was the only maybe person, or maybe one of the very few who could really connect the dots and had strong hypothesis of what's happening and why. And there were only very few people who could understand me. The rest was just like, yeah, come on, maybe not. And then you read these files, it's just like, hey, but that is exactly the confirmation of my words. So I was really very pleased that all of my hypotheses were confirmed, because sometimes you start feeling like, am I really maybe some kind of like, you think that you're going crazy a little bit, because you see all of this evidence and you can see how the dots connect, but you just cannot prove. And suddenly everything was proven. So it was really big relief. And I gave this talk, which I will be giving in Toronto, like in a couple of small venues in front of very competent people. And believe me, it was a little bit of, how to say, gave me a little bit of closure to brag, like, but I told so. Like it's like I closed a little bit the gestalt. I needed it.
Super interesting, and I like your point. I like many of your points, but the one about during war and during peacetime, because I mean the most important things in our earthly world are land, the resources, and then the power, which equals money, to exploit one or the other or both of those. And let's not be fooled by nation states looking to control our critical infrastructure and the infrastructure itself to weaken one thing, strengthen another, all with the ultimate goal of gaining themselves, be it a nation state or some powerful organization or person even. And so I think I love that point, and a lot to uncover here. I want to kind of wrap with your session, which is on Wednesday, the 25th of October. Do we really need to worry about critical infrastructure? Discussion about cyber ops in the context of leaked Vulkan files. What do you want people to take away from that after they hear you and connect with you there?
Well, I really would like, that of course people come to my session, and I think one of the points which we did not cover in this conversation, but I will cover extensively, is how all the previously massive amount of already uncovered and detected campaigns which Russia conducted, and for which we either have already indictments or advisories, because I will show how the Russia was preparing and practicing and developing these capabilities. One of the reasons why I'm giving this talk is because I heard a couple of analyses of the Vulkan files done by other analysts, and they were saying like Russia would like to develop capability. No, Russia is already having this capability. They've been practicing and developing them since 2010. At least this is what we see. Like we have evidence. Now they are building the platform and moving it into under the Ministry of Defense to use it more tactically, strategically. But they already practiced everything. So that attack, for example, the Triton attack, which was, I was confident that it was executed by the military, because only military would try to disrupt the system which protects civilian populations, because it's maximum damage. I knew that it is that's coming somewhere from that, let's say, corner. And now we have evidence that it was indeed on the, let's say, the GRU wish. So it's just like, hey, can we do that? Can we test it? So I guess I would like, like as a teaser, that I will be covering all of those previous operations, and I will be showing how do they relate to what we found in the Vulkan files.
Wonderful. I'm glad that I've been part of this conversation, because it's not really just about cybersecurity. It's all connected. It's very much political science, societal, and I don't want to sound Machiavellian, but you win the war in time of peace, because either you prepare to the attack or you prepare to your defense. I think it's going to be a fantastic session. If it's half of what we already talked about, this is already amazing. So thank you so much, Marina, Sean. I'm looking forward for, I think we have a few more conversation about sector.
We certainly do. And a few more chats on the road to share, and hope everybody gets a chance to participate in the event, connect with Marina and others that are presenting. It's always good research, good stories, good learnings. That they share a lot of what we care about, Marco, which is getting people to think. So Marina, thank you so much for putting that session together, sharing a bit with us today, and certainly getting me to think differently about this whole space.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, that's exactly what my objective is, to make people think differently. So it's just about giving people a little bit more information to start thinking more, let's say, independently from newspapers.
Very important.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much, everybody. Stay tuned for more. Subscribe. We'll be back.
We hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you learned something new and this story made you think, then share ITSPmagazine with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our columns. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.